140 members of Congress just did something almost nobody expected. They voted to move forward with impeaching Donald Trump. That's right, nearly a third of the House said, "Enough is enough." And now the Senate is staring down the barrel of another impeachment trial, right as the 2026 election season ramps up. But here's the kicker. This isn't some symbolic vote by a handful of progressives. This is a serious block of lawmakers saying the president's behavior is crossing a line, and they're ready to put him on trial. So what exactly did Al Green do to make this happen? Why are more Democrats than ever willing to risk political backlash? And perhaps most importantly, what does this mean for the Senate for 2026 and for the future of American democracy? Stick around, because over the next few minutes, we're going to break down everything you need to know about this unprecedented moment and why it could completely reshape the political landscape. When Democratic Representative Al Green forced a vote on December 11th, most people expected it to fizzle out. The House leadership, including Democrats, tried to table the resolution, effectively blocking it from moving forward. They thought the political risk was too high, worried about energizing Trump's base or alienating moderate voters. But then something unexpected happened. 140 members of Congress broke ranks and voted to advance impeachment. That's nearly a third of the entire House saying, yes, this president has crossed a line. To put that in perspective, it's more than double the number who supported a similar effort back in June. This wasn't a symbolic protest from a few firebrand progressives. It was a serious surge of support across the chamber, including both the left and moderate members from swing districts willing to take the political heat. Why does this matter? Because it signals a growing momentum that could push impeachment out of the realm of political theater and into a real, unavoidable showdown. The message is clear. Congress isn't willing to sit quietly while threats of political violence and abuse of power loom over the Capitol. And that momentum sets the stage for the next battle. A Senate trapped between two terrible choices, where every vote could define the 2026 elections. But before we get there, we need to understand who Al Green is and why he's been relentless in pushing for impeachment. Al Green isn't new to this fight. For months, he's been relentlessly pushing articles of impeachment against Trump, building a case piece by piece. His earlier attempts focused on abuse of presidential power, arguing that Trump used the office to enrich himself, punish political enemies, and undermine democratic institutions. Then he filed another resolution claiming Trump usurped Congress's power to declare war, a constitutional argument that drew attention but not widespread support first. What changed? Over the summer and fall, Trump's rhetoric became more extreme, openly threatening and intimidating lawmakers who opposed him. Green zeroed in on this, making political violence the centerpiece of his latest push. He argued that the president was normalizing a climate where supporters could feel justified in threatening elected officials, a claim that resonates far beyond partisan lines. Green's approach is strategic. He knows impeachment is more than a legal tool. It's a political lever. By spotlighting Trump's rhetoric and the increasing threats against lawmakers, he's forcing Congress to confront an uncomfortable reality. The sitting president is creating an environment where members of the legislative branch fear for their safety. And here's the tension. Green isn't just raising alarms. He's building momentum. Each resolution, each speech, each vote brings more members of Congress to the table, increasing pressure on leadership and the Senate. But this fight isn't just about politics. It's about whether democracy can enforce limits on presidential power. Next, we need to dig into exactly how Trump's rhetoric escalates threats and what makes this issue so dangerous, because that's the heart of Green's impeachment argument. Trump's rhetoric isn't always direct, but that's exactly the problem. Experts call it stochastic terrorism, language that doesn't explicitly call for violence, but encourages supporters to act aggressively on their own. He doesn't have to say, "Go hurt lawmakers." Instead, phrases like, "These people are traitors. You know what we used to do to traitors. Leave the message hanging," and his most devoted followers fill in the blanks. The results are chilling. Threats against members of Congress have skyrocketed, with both Democrats and Republicans targeted. Lawmakers like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger have needed security details to stay safe. Capitol Police report hundreds of serious threats traced back to this rhetoric. And it's not limited to a single party. Any lawmaker who opposes Trump can become a target. Green's argument is straightforward. A president cannot create a climate where threats against lawmakers are normalized. This isn't theoretical. This is about the real, tangible danger facing elected officials, and it's why Green has made political violence the core of his latest impeachment push. The stakes are high because this kind of behavior strikes at the foundation of democracy. If a president can make violence against lawmakers feel acceptable, what stops the next one from going further? And this brings us to the next critical question: how the Senate is forced to navigate an impossible choice once the impeachment articles reach their desk. Once the impeachment articles reach the Senate, lawmakers face a nearly impossible choice. They can either hold a full trial or bury the proceedings quickly, and both options carry serious risks. If they hold a trial, it dominates the news cycle for weeks, maybe months. Every Republican senator would be forced to defend Trump on the record, and every controversial action, threat, or abuse of power would be aired publicly. That kind of exposure could energize Democrats and independents, potentially shifting public opinion ahead of 2026. On the other hand, if the Senate simply votes to acquit or dismisses the articles without serious consideration, they risk appearing complicit, giving the impression that party loyalty comes before accountability. For Republican senators, the calculation is brutal. Voting to convict could ignite Trump's base, leading to primary challenges or voter backlash in swing states. Voting to acquit could alienate independents and moderate voters who see them as enabling dangerous behavior. Many senators are quietly hoping the House never passes impeachment because then they don't have to choose. But if it comes to a vote, every decision is political dynamite. This is why the Senate is in a no-win situation. Their move or inaction won't just shape Trump's fate. It could define the 2026 election landscape and set a precedent for how far a president can push the limits of power without consequence. Next, we'll look at how impeachment fits into the broader web of scandals and why Democrats see this as a critical strategy heading into 2026. Impeachment doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's part of a larger pattern of controversies and alleged corruption that Democrats are connecting to build a broader narrative about Trump and his administration. There's the Epstein files cover-up, where Trump and his allies are accused of hiding evidence related to powerful people involved in sex trafficking. Then there's the Kennedy Center scandal, with public funds allegedly funneled to political allies. And now, impeachment over political violence adds another layer, spotlighting a president who seems willing to normalize threats against lawmakers. Taken together, these stories create a portrait of an administration that operates above the law. One scandal alone might be dismissed or ignored, but when they pile up, they reinforce each other, making the allegations harder to ignore. Democrats are betting that voters will see this pattern and start connecting the dots themselves. Al Green's impeachment push is the sharpest tool in this arsenal. Even if it doesn't lead to conviction, it forces public accountability, dominates headlines, and puts Republican lawmakers in the uncomfortable position of defending Trump on record. It's a calculated move designed to expose systemic issues in a way that voters can't easily ignore. Next, we'll break down the political risks and strategy behind this move, and why Democrats believe this approach could shift the balance in 2026. Impeachment is a high-stakes gamble, and Democrats know it. The first Trump impeachment didn't remove him. In fact, it energized his base and solidified party loyalty. So why try again? Because the context in 2025 to 2026 is very different. Voters are paying closer attention. They've seen the consequences of unchecked power, and the accumulation of scandals may finally cut through the noise. Al Green's strategy is methodical. He's stacking multiple crises, political violence, corruption, abuse of power, into a narrative that can't be dismissed as a single partisan attack. Each piece reinforces the others, making the case that Trump isn't just a controversial president, he's a threat to the integrity of government itself. But the risks are real. If Democrats overreach, If the impeachment process turns into a partisan circus, Trump will play the victim card perfectly. He'll claim it's a witch hunt, energize his base, and paint his opponents as obstructionists. That's exactly what happened during his first term, and it's the danger Democrats have to navigate carefully. The upside? Even without a conviction, impeachment forces senators and lawmakers onto the record, exposes Trump's rhetoric and actions to national scrutiny, and keeps the discussion about accountability in the headlines. It's a calculated move to shift public opinion before the 2026 midterms, forcing voters to confront Trump's behavior directly. Next, we'll explore the constitutional stakes and what this all means for Congress. Because at its core, this battle is about more than politics. It's about whether the system of checks and balances still works. At its heart, impeachment isn't just a political tool. It's a constitutional check on presidential power. The founders gave Congress this power to remove a president who abuses authority, undermines democracy, or threatens the rule of law. And in Trump's case, Al Green and the 140 members who voted to advance impeachment argue that those limits are being tested like never before. Trump has pushed the boundaries of presidential power repeatedly, from encouraging threats against lawmakers to ignoring institutional norms and bending rules to benefit himself and allies. If Congress doesn't act now, the precedent is clear. Future presidents could take even bolder steps, knowing there are no consequences. This is the real question. Does Congress still matter? Or has the presidency become so powerful that checks and balances are effectively meaningless? Al Green is saying Congress must reassert itself, even at political risk, to show that no one, including the president, is above the law. The 140 votes aren't just a number. They're a statement that a significant portion of the legislative branch is willing to defend democracy, even if it means confrontation with the most powerful figure in the country. But if Congress hesitates, ignores the threats, or acquiesces to partisan pressure, it sends a dangerous message that presidential overreach and political intimidation are acceptable. Next, we'll break down the conclusion and stakes for 2026, tying together the vote, the Senate's dilemma, and the broader political implications.